How are y'all?
Hola.
Y'all. So, you know, we can do in-depth news stories on many topics. We can talk about new airlines coming to Quincy. We can do all kinds of different things. But by golly, we get a new Indian restaurant and woohoo, people go crazy.
The engagement is insane.
The first, okay, now, so apparently there's one of the restaurants in Hannibal serves Indian food, but they're a pizza place. So I guess they took umbrage. Somebody took umbrage with us saying it was the only Indian food within a certain radius.
Oh.
But it's like when you're pizza and whatever, okay, you're not an Indian. That's not your specialty.
Maybe you're not authentic.
Possibly not.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think that, again, Elders was a place that was near and dear to my heart and the heart of a lot of people in Quincy.
Why? Because of the
fried chicken, the frosty mugs of beer.
Well, I think
what that did to your heart.
Exactly.
Literally and figuratively. But I think that the long-standing tradition of having Elders on the corner of 18th and State, it was a part of a lot of people's lives growing up, and then when it left, everybody was kind of let down. Not saying that I understand why things have to close,
I'm not blaming the owners, but it's a miss. It was a part that,
a changing landscape, and
it was an
happens.
option. It was a great local place, and again, I've told the story here before about when they had their auction. Ellen and I bought, I think, 6 of the fish bowls.
Sure.
And they're sitting in one of our freezers
cool.
now. So.
And they're sitting over here too.
Yeah.
Are some of them over here?
A lot of them are.
No.
I think she made you get rid of some of them.
No, she made me get rid of a lot of other glasses, but not those, because she liked those because when her parents were alive, that was like the first place we would go to dinner on Fridays when they'd get into town. And her dad would get like the fried chicken and would get a fish bowl of beer. And that was just always a thing that it was something we always did whenever Mary Alice and Leo came to town. So I'm thinking those glasses are there. Got lots of other glasses.
I don't feel like you are living life on the edge, or you didn't live a life on the edge unless you tried the Elders scallops.
Scallops?
Ooh.
I didn't know they had scallops.
Ooh, definitely fresh.
I did it once. I won't do it again.
No?
Obviously, I won't do it again.
Right.
But
no, I would.
And then
livers and gizzards, they'd have.
Yeah.
They'd have their fish
Great
was
tenderloins.
decent. The tenderloins,
amazing pies.
Yeah.
hamburger steaks.
Yeah.
I mean, the pies. Yes, the pies were excellent.
So see, everybody has some kind of tie to Elders, and then after Elders was Lucky Dogs. Is that right?
Yeah.
Hot dogs and gambling.
It was, and Luke always said it should be called Slots of Wieners, which I thought was perfect.
But
that didn't work out. I don't know if it was because of the niche of hot dogs, or I know we went there once or twice maybe, and
Once, I think.
it was kind of expensive. You definitely have to really like hot dogs. And in Quincy, I don't know if there is.
Steve Iyengar was not enough to keep them in business.
Sure.
He was a regular there because he'd always try to get David or I to go. And we're like, hey, can we go somewhere else?
Right.
I mean,
You really have to be craving a hot dog to go there and spend a la carte money.
I mean,
on those.
it's
not that it wasn't good.
No, it was the chili dogs were fantastic. But again, going to a ballpark, going to Busch Stadium and getting a hot dog, you're going to pay more because you're in the whole experience, right?
Yeah,
but if you're going to go to the old Elders and get a hot dog, it's kind of
it's got to be really out of the park.
But this place sounds like it's going to be really good. A lot of people were very excited. We had people like reaching out to us for weeks, wanting to know about it and when it was going to open. I mean, all kinds of inquiries in our emails and in our messages, direct messages, and just like. Lots of them, and then we've finally were able to get a hold of the guys and talk to them and do that, and they, like you said, the engagement was just off the charts.
Yeah, and masala, which is the name, or the name is Indian Grill. Is it Indian
I think it's
Grill?
just Indian Grill.
Grill,
cuisine.
But it's Indian inspired cuisine, which I think Quincy is. For being as smallish, biggish as we are, I think we really like our cultural diversity when it comes to food. You don't think so? Like with the
no.
Korean, you don't think so?
No.
I think people are longing for it now because in bigger cities. So I think that the reason people go to bigger cities is because they love the diversity that's offered to
I
these
think
places.
if you're like 40-ish and under, yes, but I still think you've got most of the people who just want their burgers, their wings, their fries, their tenderloins, and their catfish on Fridays.
Yeah,
I still think that's I think that's the still the staple here in Quincy.
It could be, but the demographics are hollering, begging for new offerings, and I think that can be seen by the engagement in this. So when we were just talking about it, the place down here,
Soul to Soul.
Soul to Soul. That is a really popular place. Thai Delish, which was once. Oh gosh, it was at 1, wasn't it? Taste of Thai.
Yes.
Okay. People love having diverse options when it comes to food.
I think so too. And to your point too, the group that you're referring to that likes their hot dog or their burgers, I'm assuming maybe you're talking about like elderly or
because like 50s and up.
Well, fun fact that I didn't realize, a lot of them visit Chinese buffets. That's been around since the 1920s. So that's something, like we were at Best Buffet one day and I was like, getting my grub on and looking around and I'm like, there are a lot of older people in here.
Do you think that's because of the taste or do you think that's because of the value?
It's just something that's been around since they were kids. Yeah. So like, it's not
nostalgic.
Like, I guess maybe. I also kind of was under the impression that maybe elderly would be a little more bigoted towards places like this.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's not the case, especially with Chinese.
Yeah. Well, and I think, growing up, you and I, and probably you, our main focus was taverns. Where do we go to meet people for drinks? And now I think the younger crew, and, if I had somebody here, AKA Aspen, could probably tell me that I think they gear, experiences more towards where can we get a nice meal? Where can we get something different? So maybe
cocktails, I think.
Yeah, it's a little more based on the experience and diversity in it. And how can we bring more things here? I think this is phenomenal. I mean, kudos to these people for trying it. I think on the other side of the coin, I've seen places come and go in Quincy because people do have their mainstays. So I really hope that people venture out and at least give this a try because the more we cry about not having options and this and that, and then we bring options here and people don't patronize these places, then we just really don't have it. You don't really have something to complain about if you're not going to go and try these things. Luke and I were driving. He was like, I have no interest. He doesn't like Indian food. He's not. I'm like, well, we're at least going to try it once.
Well, sure.
Okay? Yeah. So even if just to support the people who are putting their necks on the line, and I think that's what everybody should do at least once.
I always try to go to a new place at least once. After the first couple of weeks, let the newness die down or whatever. I mean, especially if it's a smaller place, a local place owned by local folks and not a chain. I mean, I have yet to be at Raising Cane's, and I'm really not clamoring for it, but that's another thing entirely different.
They've had some ups and downs, but that's a chain. I mean, again, the McLean's for the longest time, and this may be because I work there, so I have like a tunnel vision when it comes to it. They have always had, they've cornered the market on restaurants in Quincy. And I know that there are others, so don't come at me, but they know. Home
style, specialty type, that kind.
Yeah, they know how to offer service. It may be a little more expensive, like when we're talking chicken strips. You can go to a McLean establishment or, maybe another place and get a great homemade basket of chicken strips, fries, and something else for about the same price that you can go to Cane's. So when people are talking about these, new restaurants coming in, it's like, well, do you want to go spend $14 on a drive-through meal, or do you want to go try something new? I encourage trying something new, right? And I really am excited that they're bringing this to Quincy. I think Quincy has room for it.
Speaking of room for it, that's what I was going to say. What kind of hinges on their success? Every business that was there before had parking across the street. Now you don't have that parking.
Yeah,
there are apartments. So I really, really hope they're able to get a drive-through through there. Because I think another thing is...
Did they have one before? They had a window.
I think
like the
old
east
time,
side?
and I know I spoke with a business or the building owner, and he has told me time and time again that there is room for a perfect drive-through through there. So maybe, I don't know, that will be part of it, that would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
I'm just speculating.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's parking in the back. There's a little bit on 18th Street. I mean, obviously that.
But our friends at Gym City have the overflow of parking, towards that church.
Right.
All along
So
the street.
it'll be a race to get to that church for these two establishments now to get their parking and stuff.
Yeah.
So no, that's definitely going to be an issue.
Yeah.
Is going to be the room there, and but no, I think like you said, it's great that something else is at that corner. When we first got married, we had an apartment at 17th and State, like right across from what's now State Street Bar and Grill, with Bob and Sarge's back then, and so
Great
we had that was one of the reasons we went to Elders a lot when we got married, because when the in-laws came up. But you had TCBY, you had Bob and Sarge's, you had Gem City, and Elders, so you had you were fine. You didn't have to go anywhere if you didn't want to.
I'm assuming, I don't know Indian cuisine that well myself, but I'm guessing that red dye number 3 probably wouldn't be a part of it.
How about that?
Yeah.
That's incredible, but I'll be anxious to see what gets yanked.
What do
you mean, what gets yanked?
From the shelves.
I remember back in the day when red dye number 2 was a bad thing, and now red dye number 3 is a bad thing.
Okay, so I looked over and over again because I couldn't. We always hear red dye number 40 is the big one, right? I think that's the most prevalent.
I can't keep up with the numbers, so I
but
just
if
see
you-
red dye and I'm like, bad.
If you ask, Google, AI, anything, what's the difference between red dye number 3 and red dye number 40? It's pigmentation, so. But why did we just do just red dye number 3?
Well, and I think that's probably the jumping off point. This is just my perception, but we're just now, because there's been so much noise raised about, cancer causing carcinogens within this, blah, 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 blah. I think
Neurological
that maybe it's a jumping off point that's probably going to expand, especially if we do get RFK Jr. in there, because this has been his big argument for a long time, that we have so many unhealthy things in our foods. And I don't know I don't know how this all became a thing, how it went, I don't know A to B, where it started and how we kicked it out and what it looks like in the future as far as Doritos. I'm sure that they, what do they do? Do they just yank all their products, or do they change ingredient? How does it? I'm just really.
It'll probably by a certain date, and then you say
you have to change your recipe and blah blah blah. I'll be really anxious to see what shakes out and what kind of loopholes are found and who.
I think the biggest thing that he's got to worry about is every time he gets called to the White House, he's going to have to eat McDonald's.
What?
RFK. Every time he goes to the White House, the president's going to make him eat, hey, here, have a cheeseburger, have a Big Mac, have a whatever.
Well, then it brings into question, do you think it should still be in a grocery store, but with
a warning?
Labels. Surgeon General's wanting to put warning labels on alcohol now. They've been talking about.
They don't have it now? They're on cigarettes.
I always thought they were.
Yeah.
I did too.
They were.
Yeah.
Not from the Surgeon General.
Yeah,
I kind of think your line of thinking, personally, this is my opinion, but I would like to see it come with a warning label. I don't know.
I don't want somebody deciding what I can eat unless they're going to ban everything that's unhealthy for me, because then it's just not a level playing field. If you're going to attack one thing, but you're still going to allow all of these, whatever goes into McDonald's crap food that doesn't disintegrate, or well, if we're going to start here, are we eventually going to cut out everything that's not natural? And if we're going to do that, how expensive is it going to be for everybody to eat? It's like where do we stop, and how do we in the form of censorship, how do we stop it from somebody telling you can't drink that?
It's all about moderation, though. I mean, my gosh, who doesn't want a quarter pounder with cheese once in a while? Come on.
I mean, I don't want a quarter pounder. I don't like that.
Big Mac
I like
or
the
whatever.
single.
I just do the regular flattened cheeseburger.
Me too. But costs more than the double.
Yeah.
What?
Okay, but then it goes back to a good cheeseburger,
and that's the best hangover food ever. McDonald's.
I don't know. Silver Dollar is pretty damn good.
Okay, I'm talking about just drive-through.
Okay, all right, but then it goes back to the cost versus value. Made right. I've never been a fan. Don't take it as a knock, but I just would rather go
pay for hangover food.
Yeah, I'd rather go pay for a cheeseburger at.
It's also McDonald's has that secret formula for their Coke and their Diet Coke. That's also the thing that helps with the hangover.
Yeah, but I don't think it's a secret formula. I think it's all in their.
It's the syrupy mix. It's the percentage of the syrup.
I think it's how cold they keep it. It's been leaked to someone very near and dear to me, and it's how cold they keep the lines and how cold, because it keeps it from kind of coagulating. So that, let me not spill all the secrets, McDonald's, but it doesn't have anything to do with the syrup. Everybody can do it. It's just temperature related.
Interesting.
So,
but it's still.
But it is better. I will give you that.
Oh, no, no doubt about it.
I want to get the new McDonald's, the one that was local, Emily Mast. She just recently became the owner of the McDonald's.
One of them, yeah.
Okay.
Here
They're owned by
on
we have 3 now.
13th.
And, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and
Okay.
she's a young gal. This is her second McDonald's
Good for
that she owns. She is
her.
a Quincy native. So yeah, it'd be cool to have her on.
Yeah.
This Club Muddy, we decided to have
Really
somebody
exciting.
on
Yeah.
to talk about the new administration. Speaking of,
One of the things that not a lot of people enjoy talking about or hearing about, although people do, right?
Yeah.
It's one of the most talked about things, and that is politics, the political landscape. It's going to be really interesting to sit down and hear both sides and have a very respectful conversation and just hear both sides of, or not both sides,
well,
but
yeah,
hear,
we are going to hear of kind of like on one side. Like I said,
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody saw my post. I was searching for this, and I said, yeah, there will be a little bit of pushback, obviously, because Ashley and I lead, I think, a little conservative, but independent on a lot of
mostly independent. Yeah.
topics. So this is hearing from a different side or a different perspective for us, and that's what I wanted.
Yeah. I think it was a fantastic idea. I'm really, really excited about it. Yeah.
And again, Monday we do have we have an old/new administration coming in, and again, I think I've said all along, the Republic will endure. We'll be fine. I said this going into the election. Whichever guy or gal you want to win, we'll be fine. We'll do it again in 4 years. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, we're not going to do it in 4 years." We'll do it again in 4 years.
Yeah.
But anyway.
He's the only, he's the president that has taken 2 numbers. Do you know who the other president
Grover
is?
Cleveland Alexander.
I knew you were going to
Alexander,
nail
Grover
it.
Cleveland, yeah.
The only other president to
Yep.
take 2 numbers.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
and then of course you had the only president who won 4 times was FDR, although he did not fulfill his 4th term because he died, and that gave us Harry Truman over there on the table, great president who had to make the courageous decision to bomb Japan and end the war.
Is the first Republican nominee to win the popular vote since Reagan?
Bush.
Since 1988.
Really?
Yes.
Bush didn't beat Kerry beat Bush in the popular vote?
Popular vote.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Googled it today.
Well, look at you go.
There we go.
So-
I know I'm like, hopefully I don't really shit the bed on this interview because I don't know much other than my own gut feeling. So we'll talk about some things coming up. I'm really excited about. Good job on organizing this. I think it's going to be outstanding.
Thank you.
Sounds good. We'll be right back.
Cool.
The Liquor Booth is your home for a huge selection of beer, wine, and spirits. The Liquor Booth has 2 locations in Quincy, 3520 Broadway and 1500 North 12th Street. The Liquor Booth, where it's always happy hour.
Chris Bunch, welcome to Club Muddy.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Really excited. So Brittany, you
I've been searching.
started this.
Okay, so to tell you the truth, I had a couple people lined up before you that, said that they would do this. So I was kind of counting on them, and then it just didn't play out well. I don't want to say that they backed out, but they thought about things and said, maybe this just isn't for me, and it isn't for everyone, and it is even us. It's not always easy coming out here and putting yourself out here. So I thank you
Yes.
for that.
Yeah.
But I found him based on a post I made, inquiring about this.
Yeah.
And so the subject of this is for us to hear. I don't want to say necessarily the other side, but I wanted to get a Democratic point of view about the new administration and their concerns about it.
Yeah. And I think what we were talking about before is traditionally, at least in my home, and I know a lot of other homes, it was kind of taboo to talk about politics. We talked about this a little bit before we got going. There were a couple things that you weren't really supposed to talk about, and it's politics and religion, and now it's everywhere.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And you can't really escape it. It seems very polarizing, and I know we talked about some personal experiences before. So I guess, yes, welcome and thank you for being willing to come on and chat. I can't wait to hear your viewpoint on things. It's going to be very interesting for sure. I think everybody knows that Brittany and I are very independent, as stated before. There are some things that we have, we go down the middle, but then we lean a certain way one way or the other, and it kind of switches based on how we learn, you know? But I think probably, one of the first things I want to get down to is just in general, politics, the political landscape today, it does seem
Ugly.
It does seem ugly. So I want to get your take on, number one, how well do you think that the current political system, whether Trump's in or Biden's in, whoever it is, represents the American people? Do you think that it's good at that?
No.
Okay.
No.
I was hoping you would say that because I think a lot of people agree, and not just on one side or the other, but as a whole, I feel like we're kind of looking for someone to represent us, and I don't know that that's been done very well since, I don't know.
Ever? Is it possible?
Well, I don't know if it's ever.
Yeah, I think so. In
Yeah?
years gone by, I think it did.
Okay, I guess the person that comes to my mind is Reagan, because in a previous discussion that Chris and I had, I asked him what a Reagan Democrat was, because that's like the first time I heard that term.
Yeah,
So can
let
you
us
explain
know.
to me?
Yep. Reagan Democrats, I was one. That was in my younger days. I
So like
stuck to my-
yesterday, you're saying? Come on, Chris.
A couple of days ago.
Yeah, okay.
I stuck to my democratic philosophies and principles, but yet I don't just make political decisions based on one party or another. I look at the person, because a candidate can be this person while they're campaigning because they represent their party. But once they're elected and inaugurated and they sit behind whatever desk they go to, they can take on a whole life of their own.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean they're going to adhere to anything that they said
Yeah.
or that their party says.
Yeah.
So it was with Reagan that I learned, he was a great speaker. He was compassionate. He was funny. He didn't get too stuck in the mud on politics, although he could be firm when he had reason to be. But I think at the end of the day, for him, there was always a chuckle.
Like to bring it all together.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
just a real all-American guy.
So
yeah.
I guess from what my take or understanding from that is, like, a Reagan Democrat then would fall kind of in the middle on a scaling subject of being liberal. So where do you find yourself now, like as a Democrat? Are you still on that middle, on that scaling slide, or do you consider yourself more far left?
I am not as far left as what has been created in recent years. There are people nationally who are much further left than I am. I am still very much a Democrat. The Reagan Democrat came into play because I stuck by my beliefs, but I voted for him because I voted for the man. I cannot say I've done that too many times since, because
Voting for the
again,
man, you mean?
looking at the
character.
man,
Instead
the
of
person who happened to be the Republican did not appeal to me.
Okay.
So,
Okay. So when we're talking about, of course, partisan politics, do you think, or I guess let me ask you, what values, so we're talking about character, what values are important in the man, the woman, whoever it is, or the party as a whole? It's a big question, but I think if you're looking at the person, their characteristics, their morals, their values, what is it that you're looking for in a person?
well, one of the first things is in a candidate is I hope to find somebody who isn't just going to govern by their own ideas,
Okay.
that they're going to listen to the public, solicit feedback. I always liked when they would have, like think tanks and things like that to help draw out information. And that's one of the things that scares me about what's coming up is there are definitely people who in the past have gotten in there and said, okay, now I'm in charge, and this is what I want to do. This is what we're going to do.
I can understand that concern, considering past behavior, if you will. He is known to be a shrewd businessman.
Sure.
So I guess I can understand it along, along those lines where, as the person, it is kind of scary knowing that he does stand for one thing, and I don't want to say one thing, but the biggest thing being business, and he sees things as his way. So I can understand that.
But the scary part about that is he is considered a shrewd, successful businessman. But Google the list of his business failures. He is not as good a businessman as he wants the world to think he is.
Yeah, one of the biggest failures being, I think it was Atlantic City. He pulled out from that, and that left,
His university. He got sued for $25 million for defrauding people of an education at Trump University and had to shut it down.
Yeah.
So he's not as good as
he says, but then again, to measure people
be.
on their failures would be a setback, I think, to all.
I think to err is human. However, it does need to be considered when we're talking about leadership of a nation. I do agree with that. But I also think that polarization is something that we have to consider when we're talking about failures of someone and successes. And we can't talk about the failures without talking about success. Do you think that in Trump's prior term as president of the United States, he had any successes?
No.
None.
And I have thought about that a lot, and
Okay.
I have researched that, and there are some things that other people think were successes, but in my book, I don't see them as successes, and I'm not saying that because it's him.
Sure.
It's looking at the value that it brought and the people that it impacted and what impact it had on society as a whole.
Okay.
And I can't find anything that I would give him credit for.
Okay.
Real quick,
Go ahead.
because something, we recently became Facebook friends, and I looked at, basically it was just your last 3 political posts, and one of them was about,
You said,
sorry, I'm sorry.
It is what it is. It's, everybody
but,
shares things.
One of the things you talked about was the Inflation Reduction Act. Like you made that post about, and it said even at the end, make sure you spread and share this. The exact post, I don't really know what it was. It was something about House Republicans have introduced legislation to repeal the $35 a month cap on insulin that Democrats passed for seniors on Medicare. And then I need you to retreat and spread this. Okay, so in regards to that, we did a little research on that. Now Trump didn't implement the what was it again?
It's a cap. It's a cap on insulin, so it's kind of the Inflation Reduction Act. But specifically, it was a.
He didn't do the act, but he started.
He started.
The act. So isn't that something that's good that he did?
He initiated, and then that administration, working with the Biden administration, passed it.
Yep.
And then I understand the concern is that they are looking to repeal it. Now, when you say they. It says the Republican House, but what it really is the House of Republican Study Committee. I don't know what that is, but to me it says it's not the House of Republicans, right? It's not the House, per se.
But they will have to vote on it.
But it also doesn't say that he supports it. So it's another one of these like polarizing things that's like, oh, let me grab this and throw it out there and share it because it is damning to the new administration, even though we aren't 100% sure that it's going to happen. It's almost fear-mongering. And I say that because my nephew is type 1 diabetic. And it did help his family, him, and a lot of their community. So it concerns me that we're fear-mongering saying that it's going to go away, because I don't know that we know that. And I don't know that we know the specifics about the repeal. However, I do know, and this is something that we talked about, all of these acts that come into play probably need reviewed in one way or another.
There's a lot of
because there's a lot of shit in there.
No,
Yes.
listen, it's called pork.
Pork.
It's called pork. There's
Okay,
a lot of pork in there, and
It's
so
provisions
one of
and
those.
it's riders, it's quote unquote riders, that people just shove things in there to get things passed. And I think this is one thing that it's like we really need to fine tooth this, and maybe he's going to, and maybe he's not. But that's my hope.
The act itself, I think what they're looking to repeal is, like you said, fine tooth it, maybe. I don't think, I don't know why they would repeal the one thing that he tried to implement, because in that act, there's other things in there like, in order to get rid of inflation, we have to spend $7-point-something billion, and some of that was a study to study cow farts and how
And it had the effect on climate change.
Yeah. So
what do you think about that? Let's ask an open-ended question, because I just am very curious about your thoughts on that.
On climate change in general?
No, on spending $7 billion.
A part of that
it.
$7 billion is supposed to be used to
Study how cow farts.
Absolute waste.
Asinine.
Absolute waste.
Right?
Yes.
Okay, so here's where we come together, and I think this is what we need to find more of, is common ground on the asinine bills that are passed to pad people's pockets in one form or another. So I want to ask this question, and then we'll dig into the specifics of your mega concerns. But it's recently been said that AI, artificial intelligence, is going to be, it's going to play a very large role in dissecting, analyzing these bills for extraneous spending, for writers, quote unquote, that don't have anything to do with the policy. What are your thoughts on AI and reviewing these things?
That part of AI, I think, is encouraging.
Yeah.
Because when they have bills that are this tall.
Yeah, that they pass through at 3 a.m.
Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That they've had for 3 hours.
Yes.
Even if they had a month, nobody can read all that and know what's in there, because your mind just won't retain all that.
Yeah.
So we need something, some kind of a scan or device or whatever it is that's going to go through there and pull out segments that are questionable.
Yeah.
And, maybe you would put in a title, like an overwhelming subject.
Yeah.
And then let it work on that bill. And if the overwhelming topic is auto emissions, and somewhere down in the bill, it finds, I don't know, some like...
Cow farts.
Yeah,
let's say cow farts.
There you go.
Yeah!
It's like why?
Yeah.
Some AI needs to say, why is this
in there? Or at least point it out to the people to say, this is not.
Look at this.
This is not on par. Yeah.
Look at this.
See,
which, by the way, AI pointed that out to me.
See? And this is where I think both sides kind of converge, because I know we don't agree with extraneous spending for just irrelevant shit, especially when it's under the guise of, other policy. I also think that we align more than we both like to think, as far as conservative, liberal, independent. I think there are so many things that we all just want for the human race, for the nation, moving forward, but we're so polarized that it's like, oh, well, they want this, well, then we want that, and it's kind of all just taking us in different tangents. And I think that if we all came together, we could be so powerful as a human race, right? And we talked about that earlier, even within family conversations and how awkward things can get. It's like, just stop. We all want kind of the same thing, and that is the good for people and the good for the United States of America. I think we can get there. I want to get into a little bit of the specific issues because...
But one other thing on the Inflation Reduction Act.
Yes.
And you pointed out that we don't know that he supports eliminating the $35 cap.
Right.
Okay. But that's been widely talked about in the media since Election Day.
What media?
Print, television, iPhone.
Specifics?
It's everywhere
Specific. Do you have specific media outlets that you follow?
Some people think I do, but I'm more versatile than they think.
Okay. So what specifically do you follow that you believe is the most unbiased?
MSNBC.
Okay.
I'm a Rachel Maddow fan.
Okay.
I'm a Jen Psaki fan.
What is that though? That does lean one way or the other, right?
Yeah.
Well, they all do.
They all do.
What one does that lean left?
A little bit.
I'm just asking.
It does.
I don't know.
They all do.
Do you know, like, most of when you're like really looking for independent journalism, you have to pay for that? Like, if you're looking to read for a complete unbiased opinion, you really have to
Unless
pay for
you're looking at Muddy River News, ha ha. Okay, but I think Associated Press, PBS has been said to be
They're pretty
unbiased.
PBS.
That's actually, I read a lot for this today.
Yep.
But there were a lot of articles that I think I read that were more, they seem to be more left-leaning. But anyway, okay, so let's get back to...
But on the $35, so
Yep.
that's been talked about. There probably aren't many Americans who haven't heard that that's on the table, or that that's
Probably.
been brought up. So if he is opposed to that, and I realize he's not in office yet, so he has no power whatsoever. But if I were him on a major issue like that could turn people off, I would speak up now. And I would say, you know what? We do need to look at the Inflation Reduction Act, but we need to pull out the insulin part because that is still good policy.
Oh, I think there's a lot of good policy
And
in there,
that's,
yeah.
we need to leave that out of it.
Sure.
I don't think.
I agree.
I think he should come out and verbally say, in some language that he speaks, that we can't just wipe the whole Inflation Reduction Act.
Yeah.
Because there's
Give
good
the
parts of it
American
that
people
need to stay.
some hope, right, is what you're saying. Okay, so back to our main concerns, because that's what I really want to get at. Tell me your number one main concern of what's going to happen on Monday.
As a result of Monday,
As
and
a result of
because he
Monday.
and because he has pledged to sign 100 pieces of legislation on Monday, which seems like a lot. The biggest issue that has concerned me since prior to Election Day is women's rights. I think
Yes.
our Supreme Court way overstepped their boundaries. I think if we had a policy that was in effect for 50 years, and in my book, some people would differ, but in my book, it was successful. Not 100%, but it was successful. And to just take that away, and then for people on the right to say, well, we agree with them because we think it should go back to the states. Okay, so now you're going to have 50 states that make up this country, and each state's going to want to do something different. So what you're going to end up with is females living in one state, finding what state they need to go to get what they need. And I'm not just talking about abortion. There are other women's health services that fall into that. So, you know, I have 2 daughter-in-laws in the state of Texas. So if they need something that their
Provider can't
wheelchair
give them.
governor decided they shouldn't have, then they may have to drive to Maryland or California.
And then can they get that there, being Texas residents? Are they?
Well, see, I don't know.
I'm not sure
That's,
either.
I don't think they've got that far.
Okay.
Now,
but-
when was Roe v. Wade overturned?
Last,
It was right around the time that we went to the Trump rally here in town.
It was?
It was one of the, it was right at that time because we had a lot of obviously supporters there for that, and that's one thing I think that I can say that I don't support at all. It was to me it was the dumbest thing that party could have ever done. I understand why Trump is trying to give this to the states because you're adhering to it. It's democracy. You're adhering to both sides. You know, you're trying to give your pro-life and your pro-choice people both options, and not standing with his convictions, I guess, or his party convictions. Maybe these are his actual convictions of, like, you know,
Personal convictions.
like I don't want to.
but see, being on the left, I have friends, people all over the place, who say to me, how can you vote for a Democrat when they're baby killers? They support killing babies because of abortion. How can you vote for people that kill babies.
But that's an extremist
it is.
comment. That's the same thing like of when somebody says to me, like, how could you vote for,
Right. But see, 24 years ago, my wife at that time was pregnant, and we found out that the child she was carrying was going to have cerebral palsy and a lot of brain abnormalities and things like that. So we went to a doctor in St. Louis who did some tests and different things and came in to us and handed us a card. And she said, here, stop at this place on your way out of town up Highway 70, and you'll be there about an hour, and they can take care of this for you. And we looked at it. We were younger then, and we said, what is this for? She said, you can terminate this. You're still within your time frame. And we just kind of looked at each other because we were like, that never occurred to us. So when people say,
and that was in the state of Missouri too.
Yeah. So now when people say to me, well, you're pro-abortion because you're a Democrat, you just want to kill babies, I say, I have a 23-year-old son at home that proves I am anti-abortion all the way. But I don't know how in the hell our federal government decided they get to make that decision.
Got involved.
I absolutely
And our
agree
Supreme
with
Court.
you.
Right. So I guess, and I've asked this question so many times, if you were to design a system that would allow, I guess, that would take the government out, I think is kind of where we are, right? What would that look like to you?
Well, I think initially it would be chaotic because we're so used to them interfering and them having big feet. But I think in time, if everything could kind of be reshaped without them in it, it could be made far better than it is.
Yeah.
Because it's too much personalities making all the decisions, and they don't survey the people.
Right.
But how do you shape something without authority?
Well, you've got to have somebody in charge. It's like when your kids are in school and you're in the PTA. Okay, they always have a president because somebody has to be in charge of the meeting so people don't start throwing desks and stuff at each other.
What meetings have you been?
That would be me. No, I'm kidding. I will.
So you have to have somebody in charge.
Who would you propose would be in charge and at what level?
Well, I can't this quick think of a person, but I don't think that
Not a person, but it would be in a group or
a body.
something. Yeah. Do you think there would be a committee? Do you think there would be? Because I think these are questions that need to be posed. If we're going to say, I don't think they need to be in charge, they being the government, who does need to be in charge? If we can't rely on, do we rely on individuals? Do we rely on a non-for-profit group? Do we rely on churches? Do we rely on, and then if we rely on churches, is it separation of church and state? Or what are we looking at here? Because I know that this is a huge issue, but I also want to pose the question of how do we take that out of the control if that's what we're posing?
That would be difficult for sure. And I'm not sure whose hands it should be put into. The only thing I would say, though, is any of those factions that you listed that could possibly be in charge of it, I think whoever that is or whatever group that is, they should be in charge of it, but they should not have a voting say in it.
Yeah.
They can't swing the vote.
They're led by some kind of a group that has vested interests. Right. Okay. I do agree with that. I think for a long time, Brittany and I have said hands off our uterus, right? I mean, it is weird that we have, it's just strange.
And what do they tell me I can't do?
Yeah.
I'm a male.
Yeah.
What am I controlled by?
I saw this thing today. It's really freaking interesting. I just want to pop in real quick and talk about this. So, and it's probably just centuries old, but Ms. So MS, MISS, MRS was used to determine so many things. How many are there for Mr.?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so and we're not going to go down this like
marriage
feministic
status?
thing. Yeah, but it is marriage status and how much control you have and blah,
Marriage
blah, blah, blah,
status and age, I believe.
Okay, so I do agree to a certain point that no one should be telling me how to do things with my body. However, I also know that there are people who don't have they don't have the wherewithal to make their own decisions.
Mental resources.
They don't have the resources. So then I think there is opportunity there that maybe the government could support but not control, right? So maybe that's the answer, and we need to look into that a little bit more. But let's move on.
Measure that, but yeah,
I don't either.
no,
But
yeah.
it's just so difficult that it would be like asking our city council to control what we do.
Yeah.
There's no way in hell I would let you guys. Sorry, guys, I love you all, but there's no way in hell I would let you control what I'm doing with myself.
You
right?
love them all. That's great.
I don't know them all, so I'll say that.
And I wouldn't want to.
Yeah, right. You shouldn't.
Because
You
what do
shouldn't
I
want
know
to.
about it?
Yeah, you shouldn't want to. Okay, so
What's
next.
another big concern that you have about Monday, but maybe on a local level? Like, do you think anything is going to happen here in Quincy on Monday after he takes
In your
office?
own garden.
I hope we don't have all the monster trucks with flags driving around honking all day.
You might.
You might.
You might.
I think there's going to be a lot of.
freedom of
I've already
speech.
heard of
It
a
is.
lot of
It is.
parties and stuff like that are going to happen. As would it happen if the tables were turned? You know, like I think there would be huge parties.
Parades, maybe.
Yeah.
It does happen on both sides, and it is. If you ask me, it's annoying on both sides.
Yes, I
but
agree.
But
It's
when-
like
It
it's
is
like
what it is.
it's like being a team, and like my team won and your team
Yeah,
lost.
we were just-
what we were just all talking about just recently. Like is like it's not about being on one team or the other. Everything with like the landscape of politics is we have two baskets, and they both have shitty things in each basket.
Yeah.
They both have great things in each basket, but you have to choose a basket.
I don't think you do.
You do when you vote. You have to choose
Well,
one or the other, and then
true.
you're pegged as you chose this basket. How dare you do that to your daughter? Or you chose this basket. How dare you do that to my son, my confused son?
Sure.
I don't know. Like I'm
Yeah.
just going.
Yeah, I get it. Okay, so back to the question.
Yes.
Do you think
Anything's
on the
gonna happen
20th
locally.
that anything is going to be so damning to our community that we're not going to come back from personally or as a community?
I don't believe Quincy will, at least up front, because of our size. I don't think we are that high up on the list, but I think with Tom Homan ready to go out and start grabbing, or Dave Homan.
Dave.
Yes.
Steve
Homan.
Okay, yeah.
No, I'm
I
talking
was
about,
like-
no.
He's talking about-
I'm talking about the border czar,
Yeah.
the guy that's going to enact immigration.
Yes.
Okay. I think we're too far down on his list because of our size, and I may be naive, but I don't think Quincy has an enormous immigration population. I'm told by some realtors that we do have some, but it's not overwhelming.
Yeah.
So I don't think this is going to be the first place he's going to send his troops to start snatching people up and putting them in wagons.
You
and driving them off.
literally and figuratively think that he's going to send troops to snatch people up.
Yes.
That's true. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so I mean,
So no,
I don't know.
I will
I mean,
have
that's
a foot in
always
my
I was
mouth
asking.
if that happens because it's like, do you know the money that would cost us as a country to round up?
but-
I think what ultimately is going to happen is he's just going to say, we shut the gates.
but
Or at least I'm
That has
crossing my
been the-
fingers
that has been
on
the
that
thing.
one
Build the
because
wall.
it's like
Yeah.
but we have a group of billionaire citizens
that think that they're rounding.
who are operating a committee to eliminate expense.
Locally?
No, nationally.
Okay.
To eliminate expense, like the Department of Education, I can't think of some of the other ones. But anyway, they're looking at ways to cut spending, and I think the plan is to divert those dollars over to immigration
Okay.
so
Okay.
that they can continue for 4 years to come.
Okay.
They
But
can
this
walk
is all
into people's homes.
speculation of the future.
For me, because it hasn't happened yet.
Okay. Sure.
But it has been proposed by the border czar and backed up by the future president that those people, and the term that they use is rounded up.
Yeah. Okay, so number one, those people we're talking about are immigrants, and I firmly believe that immigrants have
Illegal immigrants.
So am I.
Illegal immigrants.
Okay, so immigrants in this nation, we all are.
Yes.
Illegal immigrants have had a place in our economy for years and years and years. However, it's been called into question illegal immigration, and Brittany and I were talking about this the other day, and we have very solid ground that we both agree on, and then we have some kind of differing opinions. And I believe that if we did it right as a system, we could do it well, because we've done it in the past where you would have work visas and you would allow people to come over. But because our system is so effed, people are sneaking in, and it's illegal immigration. And how do we control both sides so that it's both economically profitable, but also, on the human side, it's profitable humanely, however you say that. I don't want to sound like a dumbass, but there have been things in the past that have been done that worked really well, and I think.
And other countries do it.
Right, but I think that we've polarized that as well. So we've said, "Oh, everybody's welcome," and no, we don't care who you are, or where you come from, or what your background is. That's false. That's not a good way to operate. Do you agree?
And I don't think we do that, but okay.
We have done in the past 4 or 5-ish years. We just kind of let everybody come over, and they were detained for 24 hours. And if we couldn't get information back, and this is factual because I did research on multiple different sites, we would let them go, and there were certain safe places for them to go.
Okay.
But we didn't detain them. So we don't know who's doing what. And by the time they get past our, detaining system, we don't know where they go. Okay, that's not good for the United States of America. Okay. It's also not good to say no one can come here.
No,
ever.
Because that's what we're
founded on. That's our foundation. Right. So again, it poses the question of how do we hone in this system, not penalize people for a broken system, but fix it, right? Do you have any suggestions? And I know I'm really laying it heavy on you, but I just want to know what you think about this kind of stuff.
I think part of our problem is our size. And I think the other part of our problem is our proximity to the southern border, which touches so many other countries south of us. So the people that are coming north to get a better life are coming in droves because they're coming from so many different places.
Sure.
I'm going to compare it, and I know it's smaller, way smaller, but on our northern border is Canada. And I have a personal friend who was born in Colombia and came to Canada on a school visa to get an education, to go to college. And once that was over, and he lives with his dad, who is a Canadian. Then once that was over, he got a work visa in Canada. But because things in the last few years for all countries with immigration have gotten so sticky, that he recently applied for another work visa so he could stay. He's been denied.
Yeah.
Because the field he's working in is not the field he got his degree in.
Okay.
Because he can't find a job. He can't come to the United States because he doesn't have a U.S. passport. He's stuck.
Yeah.
And they're going to send him back.
That's very sad.
And this is what
And they're saying he's not a criminal.
And he did, but he went about it
the
right way.
Right.
Which shows how broken our immigration system is.
And I don't think it's just immigration. I think it's almost every system that you look that our government has its hands in. There are so many broken systems that allow for diverting, loopholes, taking advantage of, and then we look at that as a systematic, a party issue. And then it's like, well, they let this happen, and we let this happen. And it's like, no, this is, in my mind, we've bitten off more than we can chew in more ways than one. And we have zero desire to go back and look at the foundation of these programs to fix them.
I don't think there is a fix at this point, though. Like what we were talking about with work visas and stuff like that, that was like in the 80s, 90s,
Even more recent, though, because you would have...
The biggest thing, though, is we had millions come in with an open border.
Yes. So now it's hard to... it's hard to track and be in control of that.
So at this point, all you
I don't
can
know what
do
you
is,
do.
I think at this point, all you can do is close and then get those people somehow on track to becoming legal. Because at the same,
Do we think that Trump is just going to round people up and send them back?
Yep.
Okay. I've done a little bit of research, and I don't think that's the case. I think that's
don't
a
know
little
how it's
bit more
possible.
fear-mongering. There is something to be said for, children born here don't automatically get citizenship. That doesn't mean they're going to be shipped out, okay? There is something to be said for if you have signed up for this help under the Biden administration and you haven't done this, you may be deported. There are things that are going to happen to ensure the safety of the United States of America. I do not disagree with that. The way that it's going to play out is yet to be seen. So I want to encourage people to not be scared of how things are going to happen, but make your voices heard on how you don't want things to happen. And I think you do
think
that,
that's great.
right, through not necessarily social media. What we've talked about before is social media can be so much noise and so much falsity that it just gets drowned out, right? If you have sincere concerns about our community, that's where we start, right? We start with our local representatives and say, we don't want these people to be deported without conversations.
Don't go knocking down doors.
Right. So do you think that is a way, locally at least, that we can maybe try to...
Start the conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I know, going back to home and the borders are, he was asked if they go into a home, grandma and mom and dad are there, they are all illegal immigrants, but there's 5 kids there, and they were all born in the United States. How's he going to handle that? And he said, we will not separate families if they choose not to.
that means the
And his
kids have
point
to
is,
go with them.
He said that
Yeah.
in his own words. He said, yes, if they want to take those 5 children with them, we will help them do that. But there is no accommodation for let the 5 kids stay and mom and dad stay here on some type of a something.
I don't think we have the means to keep the children. I mean, I don't have a good answer. I just think it's yet to be seen how it's going to play out. But I think that it's irresponsible to
Go just at that. Like, I think the people that maybe they will be deporting first are criminals.
Yes.
That's how they're getting a hold
hopefully,
of people.
if they know who they are.
And according to the current administration, whether you believe them or not, but some of their independent departments have said that the last 4 years, the United States has deported more illegals than they did in the prior 4 years. And they've emphasized the fact that they went after criminals.
So that was under the Biden administration?
And
There's a higher number of deportations back to the South than there was the prior 4 years. And yet Trump hammers that as something he can fix. Well, he didn't fix it the first time because they didn't deport very many. And one other thing, we were talking earlier about, when you send things back to the states, then you end up with 50 different systems. Look at right now. In Texas, they're building their wall. Okay, that's fine. They can do that. But if I'm an
do you
immigrant and I
disagree
come
with-
up from the South and I encounter that wall, I may have already walked 1,000 miles. I'll walk another 500 up to Arizona where they don't have the
Do
wall.
you disagree with the wall?
I think it's an expensive failure. I think it's a waste of money because those people are not going to let that stop them. Same thing with abortion. When they say they're not going to allow abortion anymore, they don't have to. They're going to
Back
happen in
alley.
the alley.
back alley.
So anything like that you try to implement to stop people from doing what you personally don't want them to do, forget it. They'll find their own way.
So do you think that there is an opportunity or a possibility even, we all know there's an opportunity to do better, but do you think there's a possibility that we're ever going to get to a point where we're less red and blue and more humane, we
Less
can come
two
together.
baskets.
Well, we can come together and figure out smarter ways if we just stop picking a side. And I think every day I say, we could do this so much better. My 10-year-old could do so much better than a lot of these things, right?
Yes.
She could come with very logical and humane ideas to solve some of these things, just in a way that she says the spelling is ridiculous of how we spell. You know, it's like, oh, well, talk to a kid and have them come up with an idea. But when you have somebody in charge that, in my mind, isn't really in charge, they're just kind of the face, right? What do you think about it? Do you think they're really in charge? Do you think Trump or Biden was really... Do you think they're really in charge?
I think there were more in the last 4 years than there will be in the next 4.
Who do you think is going to be in charge?
Trump. He rules with an iron fist, and he wants to know everything.
Okay.
And if he orders something to be done, he wants somebody to report back to him that it's done.
No inkling about corporations having the corner.
They're giving him money for
Yeah.
his inauguration. They're
Yeah.
giving him $1 million.
Don't all presidents get money for their
They do.
inauguration?
They do.
But not from
Conglomerates.
not in as big of dollars as what he's getting.
We'd have to do research on that because I don't know if I don't know anything about that. But I think that in my mind, government is, our political environment is, just as I've gotten older, I used to think the president was the guy who made all the choices and everything was peachy clean. Or girl, yeah. But
Not yet.
not yet. But it just seems like there are more things at play, and I'll do the puppeteering motion. There are more things at play than just
it's not just
It's not
him
just the president,
or her.
and-
It's not just the person.
And
Well,
that's-
it's too big.
It's huge, and
It's too big.
you're meddling in things that I don't necessarily think you need to be involved in. You're not doing enough for things that you should be involved in. There are people suffering in the United States of America. There's child hunger. There are, the opioid abuse. There are things that really deserve attention, and we're not doing shit about it.
Right.
So who do we tap to really get involved in that? And I don't think that's a partisan thing. And I think the more we divide, the less we're going to be able to conquer. And I really, truly feel like that.
I agree.
Yeah.
The further we get apart, the less we'll accomplish. But I don't. Well, let me rephrase that. At the moment, nobody seems to be trying to pull it back together. But I think there's some people coming up in elective office. Maxwell Frost, the guy who was in high school at the school in Florida, who is now trying to be the vice chair of the Democratic Committee or something. Hogue, I think is his last name. So you've got this group of younger, smarter, more level-headed people coming up. And I hope, and I'd love for it to be in my lifetime, but I hope to see them come up and kind of become the majority, because I think they stand a much better chance of pulling it all back together.
Yeah.
I like that, pulling it all back together.
The red United States of America. That's one thing.
Yeah.
It's not the red United States of America. That's one thing.
Yeah.
It's not the red United States of America and the blue United States of America.
Yeah.
It should just be the United States of
Yes,
America.
I totally agree.
Yeah,
I love that. Pulling
I do
it all
too.
back together.
Okay.
Hopefully everyone can pull it together this Monday. What will you be doing on Monday?
Probably just my normal routine. I take care of my son.
Yep.
There's usually laundry to do.
So no extra maintenance, like mentally or anything like that. We hear a lot of people needing to do that.
It's not going to be any different for me than any other day.
Good.
I suffered enough starting November 6th for a couple of months,
Yeah.
severely.
Suffered?
Yes.
Like trauma?
Yes.
How so? Or if you don't want to share, you don't have to. Sorry.
Required medication.
Really?
I could not get past the idea that we made such a terrible mistake. Again.
Really?
That was the second time. We had a perfectly competent female ready to do the job, and we bypassed him. At this time, we had a perfectly competent black female willing and able to do the job.
Yeah.
We bypassed her.
Let me tell you this.
I do like your women. Your
I do love the women thing. But I do want to tell you this.
I love
one of my favorite sayings that my mom has been, so diligent in passing down to me. Don't borrow trouble.
Oh, I don't have to.
Okay.
We've got enough.
Let's not borrow trouble. Let's see how it all plays out. I don't think that things are going to be as dire as we think, at least to start. I hope, anyway. I think that we can do more in our garden, in our community, than we give ourselves credit for, so let's do that. Also, when we have our mayoral race, that plays up into the state and to federal, so let's do our job there. And I think, if we continue to have these come to the table meetings, we're all eventually going to get together. And Chris, before we go real quick, let's shout out to your family, because I know that you all have differing political standpoints and you still stay together, and that's what we want for the entire city, state, nation, right?
That's very admirable.
What we do. So congratulations to you and your family for continuing this unit.
Thank you.
Let's shout out your family real quick, if you don't mind.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you have kids?
I do. I have 5 grown children. Scott is 44.
Do you know what tell their ages?
You're busting
Don't
out
tell their ages.
Wait a minute. Brad
Bradley
is 42.
Brad, you're old AF.
Kara is 39.
Okay.
She's the only girl.
Oh,
Yay, Kara.
Brian is 28. And Christian is 24.
Okay, and somebody who holds it all together.
that would be you.
That would be me.
Yes.
22.
All right.
Yep.
Well, there we go.
And I have, and amongst them, or at least the older 4, I have 10 grandchildren.
Oh my gosh. Are you grandpa or are you papa?
Papa.
Wow, perfect.
I love it.
I love it.
Well,
Love
cheers
it.
to you, Papa.
Cheers.
Thank you
Thank you
for
so much. Thank you.
taking this
This has
seat.
been very insightful.
We appreciate it.
Yes.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
All right,
Cheers.
Thank you.